Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into ecology,
hmm
basically how life spreads out across the planet and how groups of organisms, well, how they live and change. And we're kicking off with something pretty amazing. Picture this. 2008, Papua New Guinea. A student hears these tiny clicks,
Yeah,
thinks it's maybe a cricket,
right.
but then he spots it. A frog, just 8 millimeters long. Tiny.
Wow, that's minuscule.
Yeah, it turns out it was one of two brand new species, Paedophorus swiftorum and Emoensis, among the smallest vertebrates known.
hmm
And they only live right there on that peninsula.
Which immediately makes you wonder, right? Why there? What decides where any creature, big or small, can actually survive?
Exactly. And that is the absolute core of ecology. It's the science, really, of interactions, how organisms deal with each other and how they deal with their environment, climate, resources, everything.
Everything, both living and non-living factors.
So for this deep dive, we want to explore how climate shapes life, what really sets the limits for species, and how populations actually grow and fluctuate. It's your shortcut to getting these big biological ideas.
And ecology operates on so many levels. You can look at one organism, like how does a single flamingo choose a mate? That's organismal ecology.
Okay.
Or you can zoom out. What factors affect the whole flamingo flock's reproduction rate? That's population ecology. Or even bigger, global patterns influencing entire ecosystems. It's this huge hierarchy.
So let's start big then. If
Yeah.
you had to pin it down, what's the main driver for where life exists on land?
Well, fundamentally, it's climate. The
Yeah.
long-term weather patterns, temperature, rainfall, the whole picture over time.
Right, climate. And that's by what exactly?
It's a mix of abiotic factors, the non-living stuff, temperature, water, sunlight, wind, even soil type and biotic factors, which means all the other living organisms around.
Okay, abiotic and biotic. So let's talk global climate. How does that work? I know solar energy is key.
Definitely. The sun's energy isn't distributed evenly because the Earth is curved. The tropics near the equator get the most direct, intense sunlight.
Making it warmest there.
Exactly. And as you move towards the poles, that same amount of sunlight gets spread over a larger area because of the angle, so it's naturally cooler.
And this difference in heating drives air movement, right?
Precisely. It creates this massive atmospheric circulation. Warm, moist air rises at the equator. As it rises, it cools and can't hold as much moisture.
So it rains a lot,
Yeah,
creating tropical rainforest.
you got it. Then that drier air flows poleward, cools further, and sinks back down around 30 degrees north and south latitude,
And sinking air gets warmer and drier.
creating deserts. That's why many of the world's major deserts are at those latitudes. The pattern continues, with air rising again around 60 degrees, causing more precipitation in temperate regions, and then finally descending as cold, dry air over the poles.
It's like a huge planetary air conditioning system, distributing heat and moisture.
A very elegant one. And then you add Earth's rotation, which deflects these moving air masses.
Yeah, the Coriolis effect.
Yeah,
Creating predictable winds.
exactly. That's why we have the easterly trade winds in the tropics and the westerlies in temperate zones. It adds another layer to these global patterns.
Okay, that's the big picture. But things vary locally, too.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. Regional and local factors make a huge difference. Think about seasonality.
Because of the Earth's tilt.
Right. As we orbit the sun, the tilt causes changes in day length, sun intensity, and temperature throughout the year. This also shifts those atmospheric circulation belts slightly north and south.
So places around 20 degrees latitude get distinct wet and dry seasons.
Correct. And seasonality drives ocean phenomena too, like upwelling. When winds push surface water away from coastlines, cold, nutrient-rich water rises from the
Wow. Okay, what else affects local climate?
large bodies of water. Water has a high specific heat, meaning it takes a lot of energy to change its temperature. So oceans and big lakes, moderate nearby land temperatures.
Coastal areas are milder than inland areas at the same latitude?
Generally, yes. Think about the UK and Northern Europe being much warmer in winter than, say, Newfoundland, thanks to the warm Gulf Stream current, or the cold California current creating a cool, often foggy climate along the U.S. West Coast.
Makes sense. And mountains. They must have a big impact.
Huge. They create what's called a rain shadow. Imagine moist air blowing towards a mountain range.
Okay.
It's forced to rise, it cools, condenses, and drops its moisture as rain or snow on the windward side, the side facing the wind.
Leaving the other side dry.
Exactly. By the time the air descends on the leeward side, it's dry. It actually starts absorbing moisture from the land, creating arid conditions or even deserts. The Gobi Desert behind the Himalayas, or the Mojave in North America behind the Sierra Nevada. Classic examples.
Plus, just going up a mountain gets colder, right? Like moving towards the poles.
Right. Temperature drops about 6 degrees Celsius for every 1,000 meters you ascend. So elevation mimics latitudinal changes in climate and vegetation.
It's amazing how all these forces combine. They're basically drawing the map of where different kinds of ecosystems can exist. These major life zones. What do you ecologists call them?
Biomes. They're major life zones characterized primarily by their vegetation type on land or by physical environment in water. And climate is the key determinant for terrestrial biomes.
How do we visualize that connection?
We often use climographs. They plot the average annual temperature against the average annual precipitation for a region. You can clearly see how different biomes, like forests, grasslands, and deserts, occupy different climatic spaces on the graph.
So forests are generally wetter than grasslands, which are wetter than deserts.
Pretty much.
So,
Though it's not just the total amount of precipitation, but also the pattern. Is it seasonal? And other factors like soil type and disturbances like fires or even human activity play a role too.
can you paint a picture of a couple of key terrestrial biomes, say tropical forests?
Sure. Think equatorial regions. High temperatures year-round, lots of rain. The vegetation is incredibly dense, often with distinct layers, canopy, understory, forest floor. And the biodiversity. It's just immense. So many species packed in there.
But heavily impacted by deforestation, unfortunately.
Very much so. Then contrast that with deserts, often found around those 30-degree latitude belts or deep in continental interiors. Very low, unpredictable rainfall. Temperatures can swing wildly between day and night.
And the life there is adapted to dryness.
Absolutely. Plants might have deep roots, reduced leaves, water storage tissues, or special types of photosynthesis like C4 or CAM. Animals are often nocturnal, avoiding the daytime heat. It's all about survival in harsh conditions.
And these biomes don't just abruptly stop and start, do they?
No, there are usually transition zones called ecotones where one biome gradually blends into another. They can be quite broad and have unique communities themselves.
Okay, let's shift from land and dive into the water. Aquatic biomes, how are they different?
The main difference is they're defined more by their physical and chemical environment, things like salinity, depth, water flow, rather than just climate and dominant vegetation.
And the big split is fresh versus saltwater.
Right. Marine biomes have salt water, typically around 3% salinity. Freshwater biomes, like lakes, rivers, and wetlands, have very low salt concentrations, usually less than 0.1%.
And within these aquatic environments, there's also structure, different zones.
Yes, definitely. Think vertically first. There's the photic zone, near the surface where sunlight penetrates, allowing photosynthesis. Below that is the aphotic zone, where light is scarce or absent.
And together, the open water is.
The pelagic zone. Then at the bottom, you have the substrate, the mud or sand or rock, which is the benthic zone. The organisms living there are called the benthos.
Okay, that's vertical. What about horizontally, say, in a lake?
In lakes and ponds, you have the littoral zone, which is the shallow, nearshore area where rooted plants can grow. Then further out in the deeper water where rooted plants can't survive is the limnetic zone.
And sometimes there's a sharp temperature change with depth.
Often, yes. Especially in summer in temperate lakes, you get a distinct layer called the thermocline, where temperature drops rapidly, separating the warmer surface water from the colder deep water.
Now, oceans. They're obviously huge. What's their global significance?
Immense. They cover about 75% of the Earth's surface. They're crucial for the water cycle, providing most of the planet's rainfall through evaporation. Marine algae and bacteria produce a huge amount of the oxygen we breathe.
And they absorb CO2.
A massive amount. They play a critical role in regulating global climate by absorbing atmospheric carbon dioxide.
Let's picture a few specific aquatic biomes. Coral reefs.
Okay, imagine shallow, clear, warm, tropical waters. These incredible structures are built by corals, tiny animals living symbiotically with algae. They create complex habitats teeming with biodiversity fish, invertebrates, often compared to tropical rainforests in terms of species richness.
But very sensitive.
Extremely sensitive to temperature changes, pollution, and ocean acidification. Then, for complete contrast, think deep-sea hydrothermal vents.
Pitch black, immense pressure, extreme temperatures.
Exactly. Down on the ocean floor, often near tectonic plate boundaries, you have these vents spewing out superheated, mineral-rich water. No sunlight reaches here.
So how does life survive?
Through chemosynthesis. Bacteria and archaea use the chemical energy from compounds like hydrogen sulfide instead of sunlight to produce food. They form the base of a unique food web, supporting organisms like giant tube worms, crabs, and fish found nowhere else.
Amazing. And back in freshwater, what about lakes?
Lakes vary a lot. You have oligotrophic lakes, which are typically deep, nutrient-poor, and oxygen-rich, often with very clear water. Think of a pristine mountain lake.
Okay.
Then you have eutrophic lakes, which are usually shallower, nutrient-rich, and often experience oxygen depletion in deeper layers, especially in summer, due to decomposition of organic matter, like dead algae from blooms.
Which can be caused by pollution, like fertilizer runoff.
Often, yes. Human activities have significantly impacted many aquatic biomes through pollution, overfishing, habitat destruction. It's a major concern.
All this diversity.
Yeah.
It leads back to that fundamental question. Why isn't a species found everywhere it could potentially live?
Right. What limits its distribution? Ecologists tackle this systematically. It's like detective work.
So, what's the first step in the investigation?
First, you ask, could the species even get there? This is about dispersal, the movement of individuals away from their origin. Sometimes a species just hasn't reached a suitable area because of physical barriers.
Like the kangaroo example.
Yeah.
Native to Australia, couldn't cross the oceans naturally.
Exactly. Continental drift isolated them. Ecologists sometimes learn about dispersal limitations by observing what happens when humans accidentally or intentionally move a species to a new area, sometimes called species transplants. If it survives and reproduces, dispersal is likely a key limiting factor in its natural range.
Okay, so let's say it can get there, or it is there. What's the next question?
Then you look at biotic factors. Are interactions with other living things preventing it from establishing or thriving?
Things like predators eating it, or herbivores eating its food source?
Or parasites, pathogens, competitors? Yes. The sea urchin example, Centrostephanus, is powerful here. Where it moves in, it can graze down entire kelp forests, drastically limiting the distribution of kelp and all the species that depend on it.
So other species can definitely limit where something lives. What if that's not the main issue either?
Then we look at abiotic factors. Are the non-living physical and chemical conditions right? This is often crucial.
Like temperature.
Temperature is huge. Most organisms have a fairly narrow range they can tolerate. Below freezing, cells can rupture. Above about 45 degrees Celsius, proteins start to denature. Extreme temperatures limit most life.
And the sea urchin story has a temperature twist, doesn't it?
It really does. Centrostephanus larvae couldn't develop in water below 12 degrees C, but as ocean temperatures warmed off the coast of Tasmania, just a degree or so,
That was enough.
enough to allow the larvae to survive and the urchins to expand their range southward, where they started devastating the kelp forests that hadn't previously experienced that level of grazing pressure.
Yeah.
A stark example of climate change impacting species distribution.
Wow. What other factors are key?
Water and oxygen. For land animals, drying out desiccation is a constant threat. Their distribution reflects their ability to conserve water. In water, oxygen availability can be limiting, especially in deeper waters or waterlogged soils where diffusion is slow.
Salinity. Salt concentration.
Crucial for aquatic organisms. Most are restricted to either freshwater or saltwater because of osmosis, the movement of water across membranes to balance salt concentrations. Maintaining the right internal balance is challenging if the external environment is too different.
Sunlight, obviously important for plants.
The ultimate energy source for most ecosystems. Too little light limits photosynthesis, which is why you see fewer plants in deep shade or deep water. And finally, rocks and soil. Their pH, mineral content, and physical structure directly affect which plants can grow, and that, in turn, affects the animals that eat those plants.
It's a complex web of factors. Understanding all these limits seems vital, especially now.
Absolutely. It's essential for predicting how species might respond to environmental changes, like climate change or habitat fragmentation. It directly informs conservation strategies.
Okay, let's zoom in again. From these broad distributions to specific populations. What exactly is a population?
A population is a group of individuals of the same species living in the same general area. They rely on the same resources, face similar environmental factors, and are likely to interact and brood with one another.
And how do ecologists describe them?
One basic measure is population density, the number of individuals per unit, area, or volume. Sometimes you can count everyone, like sea stars in a small tide pool.
But usually not.
Usually not, so ecologists use sampling techniques. Maybe count individuals in several random plots and extrapolate or estimate density based on indirect signs like nests, burrows, droppings, or tracks.
And density isn't fixed, right? It changes.
Constantly. Populations increase from births and immigration individuals moving into the area. They decrease from deaths and immigration individuals moving out. It's a dynamic balance.
Besides just how many there are, how they're arranged matters too.
Yes, the pattern of dispersion, the spacing among individuals. The most common pattern is clumped. Individuals gather in patches,
Why would they do that?
often because resources like food or water are patchy or for mating or defense. Think of mushrooms on a log, fish schooling, wolves hunting in a pack.
Okay, what else?
You can have uniform dispersion where individuals are evenly spaced. This usually results from direct interactions like aggressive territoriality, penguins spacing themselves out, or plants secreting chemicals that inhibit nearby growth.
And the third type.
Random dispersion. The position of each individual is independent of others. This happens when resources are uniform and interactions are weak, like dandelions growing from wind-blown seeds landing randomly in a field.
So we have density and dispersion. How do we track a population's vital statistics over time? Its life and death patterns.
That's the field of demography. A key tool is the life table.
What's that?
It's an age-specific summary of survival patterns. You follow a group of individuals born at the same time, called a cohort, from birth until all are dead, tracking how many survive from one age group to the next. We often focus on females, as they're the ones producing offspring.
And you can visualize this data.
Yes, often as a survivorship curve. It plots the proportion or number of a cohort still alive at each age. There are 3 general types.
Okay, what are they?
Type I starts flat, showing low death rates in early and middle life, then drops steeply as death rates increase among older individuals. Humans, elephant species with few offspring but high parental care, often show this.
Makes sense. Type 2.
Type 2 is intermediate, with a roughly constant death rate over the lifespan. Some rodents, lizards, annual plants might show this pattern, a straight diagonal line on the graph.
And type 3.
Type 3 drops sharply at the start, reflecting very high death rates for the young, but then flattens out as death rates decline for the few individuals that survive early bottlenecks. Think of oysters releasing millions of eggs, or trees producing vast numbers of seeds. Most don't make it, but the survivors can live a long time.
And life tables also track reproduction.
Yes, demographers look at reproductive rates, specifically the average number of female offspring produced by females in each age group. This varies hugely between species. But a high reproductive rate only leads to fast population growth if conditions are ideal.
Which brings us to how populations actually grow. I remember hearing some statistic, like if bacteria could reproduce unchecked.
Right. The potential for growth is enormous. A single bacterium dividing every 20 minutes could theoretically cover the Earth in a thick layer in just a day and a half if nothing stopped it.
Obviously, that doesn't happen. So
Well-
what does happen?
Well, under ideal, unlimited conditions, populations can experience exponential growth. The population size increases at a constant rate per individual.
So the number of new individuals added each time period gets larger and larger.
Exactly. Because the base population is growing, it produces that characteristic J-shaped curve when you plot population size over time. This might happen when a species colonizes a new environment or rebounds after a disaster.
Like the elephants in Kruger Park.
That's a famous example. After being protected from hunting, their population grew exponentially for about 60 years, eventually reaching levels that the park couldn't sustain without intervention.
So exponential growth can't last forever. What stops it? What are the breaks?
Environmental limits. Resources like food, water, shelter, nesting sites are finite. Predators, disease, toxic wastes also play a role. This leads to the concept of carrying capacity, symbolized by K,
K is.
the maximum population size that a particular environment can sustain indefinitely, given the available resources and other limiting factors.
And how does K affect the growth pattern?
It leads to the logistic growth model. This model incorporates carrying capacity. As the population size, N, gets closer to K, the per capita growth rate slows down.
Why does it slow?
Because resources become scarcer, competition increases, maybe predation or disease increases too. The environment pushes back, basically.
The J shape turns into.
An S-shaped curve, or sigmoid curve. Growth is fast initially, then slows as N approaches K, and eventually stops when N equals K.
Is the growth fastest right at the beginning?
Actually, no. The absolute number of individuals added per unit time is highest when the population size is at roughly half the carrying capacity, K2.
Why then?
Because at K2, you still have a substantial number of reproducing individuals, and there's still plenty of resources available. Below that, the breeding population is smaller. Above that, resources become increasingly limiting.
Do real populations follow this S-curve perfectly?
Rarely perfectly. Some might overshoot K temporarily and then crash or fluctuate around K. But the logistic model is a much more realistic representation of growth in limited environments than the exponential model.
Okay, so crowding affects birth and death rates. What's going on at the level of the individual organism's life strategy?
That gets into life history traits. These are traits related to an organism's schedule of reproduction and survival things like age at first reproduction, how often it reproduces, how many offspring it has per episode.
And these traits are shaped by evolution.
Yes, by natural selection. And there are fundamental trade-offs. Organisms have limited energy and resources. Investing heavily in one function, like producing lots of offspring, often means less investment in another, like survival or future reproduction.
Like the kestrel study. Birds raising more chicks had lower survival rates themselves.
Exactly. Or red deer females that reproduced one year were more likely to die the following winter. There's a cost. You see trade-offs in offspring size versus number two. Dandelions produce thousands of tiny seeds, low survival chance for each. Brazil nut trees produce few, large, nutrient-packed seeds, higher chance for each.
Does this relate to where they live? Crowded versus uncrowded environments?
It does. Ecologists sometimes talk about rye selection and K selection. Raw selection favors traits that maximize reproductive success in low-density, uncrowded, often disturbed environments. Think rapid growth, many offspring, little parental care like weeds colonizing bare ground. R refers to the intrinsic rate of increase.
And K selection?
K selection favors traits that are advantageous at high densities near the carrying capacity, K. Think strong competitive ability, fewer offspring, more parental care, like large mammals or trees in a mature forest. It's a useful concept, though maybe a bit of an oversimplification sometimes.
So these life histories interact with the environment to regulate population size. You mentioned density playing a role.
Right. We distinguish between density-independent and density-dependent factors influencing birth and death rates.
Density independent means?
The factor affects the population regardless of its density. A hurricane, a severe drought, a sudden freeze, these might kill a certain proportion of individuals, whether the population is large or small.
Okay. And density dependent?
These factors have a greater impact as population density increases. Death rates might rise, or birth rates might fall, or both. This is crucial because it provides negative feedback, preventing populations from growing indefinitely.
What are some specific mechanisms of density-dependent regulation?
Several key ones. Competition for resources is a big one. More individuals mean less food, water, or space per individual, which can lower survival and reproduction.
Like plants competing for nutrients or light?
Exactly. Also, predation. Predators may focus on a prey species when it becomes abundant, increasing the prey's death rate. Toxic waste can build up think yeast-producing alcohol that eventually inhibits its own growth.
Interesting. What else?
Intrinsic factors, physiological responses within organisms themselves. High density can cause stress, affecting hormone levels, delaying maturation, suppressing immunity, and reducing reproduction, as seen in some mice populations. Territoriality defending space can limit how many individuals can pack into an area, leaving some unable to breed. And disease transmission rates often increase dramatically with crowding.
Like flu spreading faster in cities?
Precisely. All these factors tend to intensify as density rises, pushing the population back towards the carrying capacity.
But populations aren't always stable, right? They fluctuate.
Oh, definitely. Population dynamics are complex. Look at the classic long-term study of moose and wolves on Isle Royale in Lake Superior.
What did that show?
Decades of data show dramatic fluctuations in both populations, driven by interactions between them, but also by factors like harsh winters affecting moose survival, disease outbreaks like parvovirus hitting the wolves, and food availability. It's rarely a simple S-curve in the real world.
And populations aren't always isolated, are they? They can be linked.
Right. Many species exist as metapopulations. Think of it as a network of separated local populations living in discrete patches of suitable habitat, linked by occasional dispersal individuals moving between patches.
Like islands of habitat in a sea of unsuitable area.
Exactly. The Glanville fritillary butterfly study in Finland is a great example. They live in specific meadow patches. Some local populations go extinct in some years, but new patches are colonized by butterflies dispersing from other patches. The overall metapopulation persists through this balance of local extinctions and recolonizations.
Understanding metapopulations must be really important for conservation, especially with habitats becoming fragmented.
It's critical. It helps us understand gene flow, long-term persistence, and how to manage landscapes to maintain connections between populations.
So wrapping this all up, we went from a tiny frog to global climate, dived into oceans and lakes, figured out what limits species, and explored how populations grow and regulate themselves. What are the big takeaways?
Well, first, ecology is this multi-layered study of interactions. Second, climate, shaped by sun, air, water, and landforms, is the primary driver of terrestrial biome distribution. Third, aquatic biomes are shaped by their physical-chemical setting. Fourth, where any species lives depends on dispersal, biotic interactions, and tolerance of abiotic factors like temperature.
Right. And populations.
Populations are dynamic, described by density and dispersion. Their life patterns are captured in life tables and survivorship curves. Growth can be exponential initially, but is ultimately limited by carrying capacity, leading to logistic growth. Life history involves trade-offs shaped by selection. And crucially, density-dependent factors provide negative feedback, regulating population size, though fluctuations in metapopulation dynamics are common in nature.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is. Thinking about all this,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does this mean for the future of complex systems like the Great Barrier Reef, or even just the squirrels in your local park, given all the changes happening?
Exactly. That's the key point. Every organism, every population is part of this dynamic web. Understanding these ecological principles isn't just academic, it's fundamental for appreciating the natural world and making informed choices about how we interact with it.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into ecology. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay curious.